So I think it's important for all the youth who are watching this to first understand why we need green skills.
The youth really needs to make an impact on climate change because it's a pressing issue that we have.
It has a big part to play in our lives more and more.
When we are taking our decisions, we always think to conserve the environment.
Current generation really need to start acting on because it's a pressing issue.
Not just one person's or a country's problem. This scenario affects the entire world.
We are facing more and more natural disasters every year.
But no one really seems to talk about it, so it's lovely that you are.
The reason we need green skills is because unlike at any time in history, we are now facing what the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls a climate emergency. So what is this climate emergency? In fact, yesterday he mentioned that the era of global warming has ended and the era of global boiling has started.
In the hospitality industry, we are using a lot of natural resources and in the same way generating a lot of waste as well. From the first step, they are doing the segregation part. So in the kitchen, they are segregating mainly the solid waste like the food waste items, and in the same way what are the other items like plastic, polythene, we are segregating that and sending for recycling.
We have done a life cycle assessment comparing a petrol three-wheeler versus an electrified three-wheeler, and from that we found out about 55% carbon dioxide reduction per three-wheeler converted.
As a woman, we would bleed for about 35 years and that would amount up to a lot of waste if we were to use pads. But fortunately, I'm privileged to have stumbled upon this magical device called the period cup, and you can use this for about 10 years. It eliminates the period waste that we would have otherwise created, and it is a fabulous device. By switching to a period cup, you would be saving yourself a lot of money as well as the environment.
Apart from people buying food from out, even from their homes, when they bring their food in their lunch boxes, it's lined with a lunch sheet. So I actually personally have taken it on to talk to everybody whilst they're eating their lunch and explain to them that it's better if they don't, because we know how much of harm it does.
We actually decided to cycle a long while back, but today we finally decided to. And I feel like with all the fossil fuels, which is bad for the climate, it's just nice to cycle around.
As a mother, I'm concerned about the future of this world and what our future generations will have to face. Every individual, I think we can think about conserving and cutting down on using of plastic, and overall thinking about what damage we are doing to the world that we are living in.
I think the youth really needs to make an impact on climate change because it's a pressing issue that we have. So in our day-to-day lives, we can make small changes that can make a very big impact. Because what's important here is reusing, recycling, and this is something that's going to affect climate change because so many unused items end up in landfills and wasted.
Things that I do to help in climate change is, instead of using private vehicles, I use public transport as much as possible, and I also reduce the consumption of electricity as much as possible.
That people like to buy lots of things that are very energy intensive, so trying to live a more minimalistic life, I think would do a lot to help.
So what we have been essentially trying to do is create a curated space for vendors, entrepreneurs to come up with products, services that actually serve the society and environment in a positive way. So we encourage the entrepreneurs to think of their products and services in a way that reduce social and environmental harm and promote the good.
Every nation is now basically being pummeled by the climate emergency. So it is in the backdrop of that International Youth Day is basically communicating to all the youth and saying, acquire green skills. Because if you don't acquire green skills, you will not be able to be relevant in a climate emergency pummeled earth. Our generation won't be around to face the brunt of the climate emergency. The youth of today are going to be the ones who will look up and say, why are we having this kind of crisis? They have to take ownership and change the future so they live in a sustainable world going 20, 30 years forward.